Oh my gosh, what did you think of the BDC? I saw you like twice.
We really don't see each other outside of this podcast studio.
It's really true. It was also humongous. There were lots of people that connected with me on the back end. Like, I didn't see ya.
I know. Well, and I feel like this is a theme every year at the BDC. Too big.
Right.
Conference center, too big. And I know the feedback is always like, we're of a size, we need a certain size space. But this one was just particularly labyrinth-like. It was up 2 escalators to go down 3 escalators and across a sky bridge and then around the thing and up the horn and the South Tower, the North Tower. I would love to have had just like an aerial overview map of my routes as I went from place to place, because I don't think this is a joke. I don't think I ever went from point A to point B directly. I think every time I was like South Tower, North Tower, South Tower Convention Center.
Yes.
It was never direct.
Yes, for sure.
So that's my main takeaway. That's the most important thing to share with community members is the logistical configuration of the World Congress Center.
Yeah. I will say opening session was awesome. You were fantastic.
Thanks.
There was great people up there, and they really made it conversational, and it was really lovely. So that was cool. If y'all missed that, it was great. And it like set the tone. It like really set a good tone.
Yeah, I heard a few people say the best opening session that they can remember are like veterans who have been going to this for 10, 20 years.
Yeah.
And, I've seen my fair share, and I can't necessarily say there's one that stands out above and beyond that one. So credit where it's due. The science fair certainly kept our team and you in particular plenty busy. What from the science fair kind of stands out to you? What was unique this year or just fun to see happening again? What science fair thoughts do you have?
I think like the thing that's been really fun about the science fair, this is the big science fair that we do at BDC, and then we take a smaller, it's still oversized, but we take a smaller roadshow around chapters. And what's been nice this year is to see like repeat customers, not necessarily from like, that we've seen before, but like people in the conference come back again, and then they come back again, and then they come back again.
Yeah.
And kids especially, it's been really fun to have like kids go through with their groups, with their kid tracks, and then to see them come back with their parents and like dragging their parents and showing them certain games. So it was fun. We had a new module this year, looking at balancing, protein, how our body naturally balances itself like through the clotting process, through the coagulation process, which is so fascinating if you think about it. Like our bodies just naturally keep ourselves in check.
Yeah.
Because if we didn't have those, other things that just kind of kept certain growth needed to stimulate to like form a clot in check, like we would overclot. And of course, as we all know, if you're deficient in one of those proteins in some way, like then your body again is out of balance. And we had a cool new game that kind of really enforced that teaching, and it was cool. It's always cool. It's the coolest thing we do.
How did you feel about the panel you hosted?
Loved the panel. Oh, it was about life stages, living with a bleeding disorder in the different stages of life. There was like young college students, and then there was 2 in their 30s or 40s, and then there was 2 glorious legend old timers. Randy Curtis was there, and Connie Montgomery, both have been on the show, were there, and it was great. It was just a really fantastic conversation, and it was a packed room. What about the stuff you hosted?
Also positive experiences. I didn't host anything this year. I was on 2 panels. One was a moment of reflection at the end that was about helping people kind of crystallize some takeaways before leaving BDC. And the other one was, I should remember this, Candid Conversations.
Oh, yeah.
So Dr. Mark Redding was a part of that, as well as a caregiver who lives in South America. Her name is escaping me at the moment. But what's neat, I've participated in Candid Conversations before as either a panelist or a host. And what's nice about the session is, as it sort of suggests by its very name, open-ended, very lived experience-based dialogue around what are we really thinking about? What are we really struggling with? I appreciate being in that room, and there was a dad in there of a younger child, relatively newly diagnosed, who was also in opening session. And during opening session, I made mention of Adam's passing away from head bleed, and that's spurring me to wonder, how do we better engage young people before they start transitioning, et cetera. And he was curious to hear a little bit more about the story because he's a relatively new parent, and one of the big fears is that, yes, someday my child is going to grow up, and will he take good enough care of
Yeah.
himself? So it was nice to be I guess the point I'm making is it was nice to be reminded that there are new people coming to meetings all the time who haven't necessarily heard that story
Yes.
that, I or maybe a listener who speaks
Yes.
something, we can forget and
Yes.
assume, oh, people know my story. Oh,
Yes.
people know. No, not necessarily.
Yeah.
And you can give people the headline, and then if they have questions or want to follow up, they will. And that dad following up just made me glad, because I actually hadn't intended on speaking about Adam or the Believe Limited origin story in opening session. I thought it was going to be pretty Ryan White documentary, poster child focused. And then when Phil teed me up to share a little more, I just sort of ran with it. And I'm glad he did. I'm glad I kind of didn't know that, so I didn't have a chance to overthink it. And it was, again, just a reminder, there's new people coming in all the time, and some of their fears and concerns, worries, the unknowns in their life. These meetings and the connections they make go a long way toward addressing those. So it was a nice little exchange in that candid conversation session.
That's actually a really lovely reminder and point, because I do feel sometimes in the community we do feel like it's almost like a broken record, and especially with all of the new treatments that are available to us. I mean, we've had lots of conversations on the show about, folks that have really struggled with their joints or with prolonged bleeding, chronic pain, that all of a sudden are starting to experience a different avenue of life because of these new treatments, these new avenues. And it almost feels like sometimes the conversation, we're just like talking in an echo chamber, just like around and around and around. And to remember that there are new people coming into this community, there are new people that have never heard of what hemophilia is. I remember one of my families in Colorado, they have a very impactful story that when their son was born, they had a nurse, tell the diagnosis in the middle of the night and say, "Don't Google it. Someone will be with you tomorrow." Of course you Google it,
especially after that direction.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But that's mindful. You said something, this is kind of like switching topics, but again, something that stayed with me a little bit. You said something. We were at the science fair, and I asked how you were doing, and you were like, "It seems like every session like morphs into a conversation about women with bleeding disorders and women with hemophilia in particular."
Yep.
And that's been like kind of like the through line of the conference this year. And the panel I was on, it really morphed. And then like when we opened it up for Q&A, I mean, it was almost like not about like life stages. It truly was like about diagnostic testing. And it's just so top of mind and so topical. And it was very noticeable this year.
Yeah. And it's
as
been
it should
building
be.
up. As it should be. Yes. And we should be making progress in an organized enough way that what I sense as the need for every room to become a discussion about women with bleeding disorders should hopefully go down. Right? Because as we start making progress and kind of focus how we communicate about that progress, the need for it to be in every corner, because the concern, to just look at it from a different point of view, what other needs and what other underserved areas aren't getting attention right now, because there's only so much to go around, and we're putting attention in this worthy area and in this worthy area, but there's always areas that are being underserved. So as encouraged as I am by all the discussion and the idea that every room becomes a room about women with bleeding disorders, I am also staying aware of the conversations that may not be happening because of that. And that, we're going to feel that in 2-3 years when it's like, oh, we haven't been talking about blank for a while. And so,
Interesting.
how do we stay attuned to that while also championing necessary conversation on the other hand? So it's a balancing act. But I thought overall the meeting had a great energy to it. There was the fact that it was as spread out as it was. Sometimes it's hard to kind of wrap your arms around who all is here and where are all the big main stage moments. But it did feel like people were enthusiastic. And the last takeaway I'll share, and I'm sure this has been said in previous years, I was maybe just more sensitive to it being said, or maybe there was a concerted effort to message this more directly. I don't know. But I felt like I heard over and over again, make sure to bring what you learn here back home. Share it with your local community. Make sure the people who were not here can benefit from the information exchange and connections that took place here. And again, I'm sure that's to some degree been messaged before, but it was landing on me in a way that it felt specific. It felt motivated, like there was an NBDF decision. I again, don't know, I'm just speculating, behind doors to say, let's make sure to remind people that the education of BDC needs to live beyond these 3 days in Atlanta when they go to their home communities, their family education days, their camps, their weekend events, their walks, that they're sharing the things that they learned here. Remind people of that. And so I suppose I'll share that with any listeners who either were at BDC or frankly who listen to this podcast and learn things. Tell other people. That's how learning takes place. And frankly, as a patient, when I hear from another patient or a caregiver, a community member who says, hey, did you hear this podcast? Did you see this video? Did you see this article? Did you hear about the session on? I'm much more likely to pay attention to it than if I just see it in sort of a generic e-blast or from a corporate social post. So please, if there's things you're learning from this show, from the BDC, from HFA's resources, wherever you may be learning from, share it with other people. Don't underestimate your own power to dramatically influence someone else's life by simply sharing information with them that they just maybe so happened to need.
Right. And I get last say, sucker. We got so many people coming up to us saying that they love the show. Way more than
we
usual.
Did. Yeah, I was surprised.
People come up to you all the time, but people came up to me, and that never happened. So I just want to shout out all of my new pals. Like there was a lot of wonderful people. So anyway, y'all, you are heard and you are seen. And anyway, it's like it has made this little baby recording a little bit more fun, I think, because there's like folks out there.
That's fair. Yeah, good point. Thank you to everybody who came and said something.
Yeah.